So,
Oh,
ready to go?
yes.
Already.
Yeah.
Everyone remember to speak loud.
Yeah. So what we're going to do,
Okay.
since we have eaten lunch and everyone's tired, we're going to do a quick little energizer. Okay. Quick little energizer for everyone. Oh, yes, yes, for you too. So what we're going to do, I'm going to play a song. So everyone can stand up, put your stuff down. This is going to be fun too, for me too. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to play a song, and the idea is this: you want to touch 3 walls and introduce yourself to 3 people. Hello, I'm, and then back to you. Ready? Hang on. Yeah, touch 3 walls. So you're going to run over, touch, touch, touch. Hello, I'm Dave Gracie. I'm Joel. Boom. Hello, I'm Dave Gracie. Hello, I'm Dave Gracie. Okay. Is okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay, ready? When the music stops, you stop.
Oh man.
Go!
3. I'm Dave.
I get a prize for being the best.
Okay. Never heard? Seriously? Okay, now. Okay, so last part, we're going to do it one more time. However, try to find 3 people you didn't introduce yourself to this time. Please stand up. Ready? Don't introduce yourself to the same people. Yeah. Go!
Christian.
Hey, I'm Jonathan. Nice to meet
Thank you very much. Give yourself a round. That was really good. I think if you read your brochure, my presentation today is on Connect series. Just for a quick check, does everyone teach Connect? Is there anyone here who doesn't? Everyone does? You don't teach Connect? Oh, you do? Okay. Okay, very good. I want to start off with one of the difficult parts of working with teenagers, right? So sometimes you find teenagers to be quite a difficult group. And so the reason I've come up with my presentation is today, so I taught at Sakura, and I taught, I think, 8 or 9 classes. I would get to the end of the day and be like 8:05, and you know, it's 8:05, just like, oh, really? Right now I got this 50-minute class with these 3 teenage girls, and I'm just like, oh, I'm so tired, you know, you're doing that whole mopey, feeling sorry for yourself, like you know, like your job should allow you all the best privileges in life to go home when you're tired. And I would get these 3 high school girls, and they'd come in. And it would happen every time, just before I begin, I'd be like this tired person, and then these 3 girls would come in, and they were just kind of like these awkward, nerdy kind of young teenage girls. And they would give me so much energy, I'd never be tired by the end of it. I couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, every time they would come, I would sit there and be like, oh, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this, I'm so tired. And I'd get in class with them every single time, and I'd have such a great time, I'd be totally energized in the end. Now, I'll tell you that story because this went on for about a year, And I would go through the same mental routine every single time where don't want to do it, have the best time ever, and I have all this energy. And so please keep that in mind as I'm going through the presentation with what I talk about. I think it's very easy in our job, and I include myself too, it's very easy to get a shtick, right? It's very easy to find this like little routine, this little shtick that you have that works with everybody. So I'm not talking about just doing well in your evaluations. I'm not just talking about what the managers say. I'm just talking about getting into like a little routine, a little shtick, like I'm the funny guy, I'm pretty, I'm handsome, my students like me. But you might not be really teaching. And it's easy to find this little routine. I don't know if that seems clear enough looking at some of your face, but you just find this little routine that you put on. And everyone's happy, right? Students are happy, the parents are happy, everyone's happy, but you're really not really teaching them. They just like come and spend time with you. They come and spend time with you and they're just like, oh, that was fun. So also please keep that in mind as I go on. If I was to ask everyone in this room, and we'll just take a minute or two, could you tell me like 5 principles of English teaching that you know? Okay, like just 5 principles, even 1 or 2. So let's take, and it doesn't have to be right or wrong, but can you think of like 5 principles of teaching English? Much in the same way we think about principles of the water. You know, what are 5 principles of, being in the boat? And you have the simple one, don't drink and drive your boat. Okay? Watch the weather, right? Watch the clouds, different kind of things like that. Please.
Student speaking time should be more than teachers.
Okay, so kind of getting into the principle of communication, giving them the opportunity to speak. Perfect. Thank you.
Jack said that first year they're teacher, second year they're friend.
Okay.
They're not coming there for your friendship.
Right. And that kind of gets back to that shtick thing where you can get into, especially if some of you have like you don't have a huge age difference, you can get into that with like, 17, 18-year-old, students where you're kind of becoming more of a friend than a teacher. Can you anyone think of anything else?
Recognize if they don't understand something, just looking at their face or body language.
Okay. So monitor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a good, especially when it comes to connect. That's a really, really good point. Excellent. Is there anything else anyone want to throw out? Okay. When we think of sports, music, art, like usually there's some kind of principles surrounding it. Now I do martial arts. So there's actually 5 principles of Shotokan Karate, and I know a lot of you aren't interested in martial arts, and that's fine, but I can tell you what they are. Number 1 is like seek perfection of character. Number 2 is be sincere. Number 3 is put maximum effort into everything you do. Number 4 is develop self-control, and number 5 is respect others. So when I'm doing martial arts, and I know this is not a topic that everyone's interested in, but at least when I'm doing it, I know that I'm working on one of those 5 things. And it took me maybe 5, 6 years to figure out, I'm just like, hey man, I just want to mix it up with someone. What is all this other stuff you're talking about, like be sincere, respect others? It took me a really, really long time to understand how important that stuff is. And I can't explain it, and a lot of you wouldn't be interested anyway. But the point is, those 5 principles guide everything I do with training. And so what I want to suggest, or what I want to offer today, is to offer you some principles to do with English teaching, especially when it comes to teenagers. What is a teenager? If I was to say, what is a teenager? Someone from hell. No, what would you say a teenager is?
In between a kid and an adult.
Somewhere between a child and adult. 13 to 19. Okay. Anyone else throw anything out? Yep.
Somebody who's uncomfortable with the new hormones raging through their
Yeah,
body.
definitely. Yeah.
No, just motions. If they're
Motions.
Yeah.
Up and down,
Up and
right?
down.
Yeah.
They're very.
Yeah. And everything's, right? Like everything in the teenage world's like huge. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Like growing out of dependence and growing into independence.
Independence. Okay, perfect. Generally, you have like, yep, sorry.
Oh, sorry, Moses. It's actually, I thought it's the age of self-discovery the most.
Okay.
Find out the
Okay.
most about
Identity. Okay.
I was going to say a major target market for businesses, because they're future moving oil customers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of like trendsetters, or what their society determine.
Okay. Yeah.
Markets in the future, perhaps.
Okay. Definitely. In the general sense, you have like a young teenager is 12 to 14, middle 14 to 17, and late 17 to 19. but you've hit on a lot of the really important things dealing with teenagers. If you were to think of a teacher, and I want to be really careful with the words I use here actually, if you want to think of a teacher who taught you really well, because a lot of times people say, think of a teacher you really liked, think of a teacher you really respected, think of a teacher who really inspired you. That's kind of interesting. But how about a teacher who really taught you well? Because I had teachers who didn't teach me very well, but I liked them. And some of them even inspired me, but they really didn't teach me that well. What would you think of that made that teacher teach you so well? Remember, not inspired, not like, but actually teach you very well.
Kind of respect, but a professional respect.
Okay, perfect. Respect, excellent.
They made us think.
Made you think, okay?
The stakes were so high to pass the class. I think like if you failed one test, you know, that dropped your grade low
Okay.
enough to fail the class.
Which is kind of in some ways relevant to us in Japan, right? Because like a lot of students have a lot riding on being able to do well with English. Anyone else? Yep.
Really hard to make all the information memorable.
Okay. Corey, we can go? What are you doing? Waving? Random?
Anyway.
Oh, sorry. Why not?
Being knowledgeable.
Okay. Yeah, being knowledgeable. That's a big one. Okay.
Coaches believed in themselves, and what's more, they believed in me. They
Okay.
believed in what they were teaching was the right way, and they believed in me.
Yeah. Like, so knowing it, and then also knowing, like, I'm giving you something valuable here. I'm
Yeah.
not just making this up.
And you can do it.
Okay.
You can do it.
Awesome. Does someone else raise their hand? No? Yeah.
It's approachable, like they need someone else to,
Someone
yeah,
who's
to
approachable.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Actually, I found that liking a teacher is actually very, very important because I paid more attention to what they were talking about.
Okay.
You know, if I liked that teacher and they were talking and they were entertaining,
Mm-hmm.
then I just found I learned more because I paid more attention.
Okay.
I wasn't
Yeah.
sleeping.
It's kind of like different kinds of like, though, in the sense of, like, I liked him, but he wasn't my friend, but I very much liked him. But okay, I see your point. Yeah.
For me, it was consistency. Teachers that were consistent, that learned a lot and enjoyed their classes. But teachers that were up and down and everything changed, very difficult to do in a group.
Okay. Awesome.
I felt challenged. I felt like the teacher was just mediocre. Like they didn't really care and wanted to get the most out of teaching you.
Okay. So not too easy, not too difficult. Okay. Yeah. Sure.
If they had enthusiasm about what they were teaching, not enthusiasm about you.
Right.
Their subject matter.
Right there.
They had enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Fear, respect, and a yardstick.
Yeah, old school. In my case. Yeah, is that right? Okay. We'll strike that from the video. We won't use that, but okay. Anyone else? Okay. We kind of hit on, I just want to mention briefly, keep it in mind, all I'm going to do is just give you some general information, and what you do with it's up to you. But you've kind of hit on all the major topics. Number one, self-esteem is huge with a teenager. Very, very, very big. Anything you can do to help improve self-esteem, even in terms of just creating a supportive environment with the Connect series, really, really important. Knowing that they can come in this room and they know that you're going to be supportive of them. Okay? Number two, something they're always dealing with, especially in Japan, is peer pressure. Right? Always dealing with trying to fit in, always dealing with, no, don't be the nail that sticks up, all that kind of stuff. So any topics when you're talking to them, dealing with things about peer pressure. Also, what do your friends think about this? And asking them, okay? Within the context of the book, but still, topic of peer pressure. Ethics, how to behave in the world. Right? And it seems like they're, esoteric topic, but actually, they're trying to find their way. How do I act? Right? Talking like whether in terms of like dealing with sexuality or dealing with relationships, how do I behave in the world? They're not really sure. Those kind of topics get on. You mentioned it, finding their identity. Finding their identity, and I think there's opportunities within Connect to talk to them about those things. Finding out who they are, finding their interests and why. And then lastly, relationships. Relationships with their parents, relationships with their family, finding out those kind of things. These things generally are not Japan special. They're almost everywhere. But somewhere or another, when you're looking at these topics, and that might kind of sound crazy with the quote Connect series, But if you can find a way to fit these into, you'll find your students are going to find it to be a lot more meaningful, and they'll remember it a lot better. If you go into your Connect class, what do you want to happen? What do you want to happen when you walk into your Connect class? John?
I want the kids to talk.
Okay, yeah. See, that's good to know. That's good to know when you walk in. It's not just open the book and see what happens, right? Because that's very, very easy routine. So when I was saying to you before, everyone, we find our shtick. Some people's shtick is just, okay, page 42, turn on the tape, and let's just go through the motion, okay? So you want them to talk more. Anyone else? Yeah.
I'll just add on that. Whenever I'm coming to classes, I actually had 3 high school girls as well, and it was very energetic. But the topic would be about something we were about to read. And what's cool about Connect is they have a lot of different stories. So you can just throw one question on. The conversation sometimes lasts for like 17 minutes.
Right.
You know?
Cool. Yeah.
Cindy relates to the material and understanding the music.
Okay. That's awesome. Anyone else? Because I think it matters, right? Like even like kids or adult classes, I think it kind of matters like when you walk to class to decide what do I want to happen today? Like what's supposed to happen within this class? And things like I just want to have fun or I just want to kind of go through some general things. I don't think really is as powerful as I want you to talk. So I know that for 15 minutes we're going to talk. I don't know if that teacher's still here. There's a teacher here who once did a girl wouldn't talk in his class, so we just stared at her for 15 minutes. Was that you?
No, my friend did it too.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Yeah,
like a military kind of like.
we choose that. Okay, we're going to talk. Hello, and she wouldn't talk, and I guess there was a teacher today at LS who did the same thing. He was like, I'm going to sit here until you talk. We're going to strike that from the video too, but I thought that was an interesting story. Okay. So today, what do I have to offer you? We got probably 30, 35 minutes, and I'm going to talk about teaching principles. I'm not going to teach you them all, obviously. And I'm just going to give you a general idea. And what we're going to do, here's going to be our method. I'm going to talk about a principle, then I'm going to give the information to you, and then I want you to teach it to each other. Now, it sounds kind of crazy, but if you really understand something, they say, you can teach it to someone else. So we're just going to get into pairs. I'm going to hand it out to you. And I just want you to explain to each other what it means, and we're going to give you a Connect handout to find out how to do it in. And that way it's going to kind of keep everyone motivated, everyone kind of involved. But if you want to know if you really do understand something, right? Who here is not good with grammar? Right? I mean, that's the real truth, right? You know that you finally understand all the tenses and everything when you're comfortable enough to go up to some people and say, I'm going to teach you these now, right? That's kind of how I think you know. So hopefully this will be helpful within the context of this. One thing before we start, I've made this mistake. What is the goal of Connect? Outside of obviously teaching English, but there's a very special thing that can get lost within the Connect series. And I find it always happens to me in the music section. It always happens to me in the music section. What is the goal of Connect? If you were to sum it up into a sentence, keep in mind I have it written down, so I can
teach them about like American pop culture, some kind of Western.
That's okay. I'm glad you said that because I think that's what a lot of people think. And I think that's what I think, or used to think. That's the goal of Connect, but it's actually not. That's why I find myself sometimes, you girls don't know who the Dixie Chicks are? Here, let's put it on, like, hey, look, and you get all excited, and I'm showing them this is the Dixie Chicks, and they're yawning, right? They don't want to hear about the Dixie Chicks, man. They don't care. But, you think I'm teaching them, right? So I'm going to show them about the Dixie Chicks, and, oh, you don't know, who else is in there? Who else is in that little part?
Aaron Carter.
Who? Pink, right? Pink.
Bob Marley.
Yeah.
Jonas Brothers.
Bob Marley.
Bob Marley.
is he?
What about the cat who did MTV? There's some guy I never even heard of. His name, what's his
Carson
name?
Daly.
Carson Daly.
Ryan Seacrest.
Ryan Seacrest. Yeah, guys I've never heard of. You're like, I'm going to show you all about these guys. That's my job. But actually, that's not. That's not. And I said, that's not my job either, right? That's not my job. Yeah.
To get them talking about themselves.
To a degree. You're hitting on it. You're hitting on it, but it's kind of, I think it's really obvious to all of us, really, what the point of Connect is.
Just to make English fun and cool to them.
Okay, close. We're almost there. And keep in mind, I'm glad you're saying this, because this is what all the things I thought when I was teaching Connect. Yeah.
Dave, it's not like to connect with the students, and you're not going to laugh after you say
No, I'm not Jack.
that's crossing lines.
Yeah, I know. That's not that. Can anyone take it to its most basic, obvious level? Yeah. Almost. Community, almost.
Speaking English.
Yeah. Yeah, really, that's the goal. Well, no, because the goal is not to teach the topic. The goal is to teach English through the topic. The topic doesn't matter. You're not trying to teach them about pop culture or Ryan Seacrest or like, do you wear a glove when you go inline skating and like gloves and nets and hey, little guy, like this is my little brother. You're not trying to teach them anything like that. You're just trying to choose topics to teach them English through. So keep that in mind. Those topics really aren't so important. You're not really trying to teach them. I thought, like what you said, really, I thought, oh, this is like, cultural competence. I'm going through all this because they're going to move to, North America and they're going to have to know about all this stuff, but that's not true. The actual goal, even according to the Connect people, is just to teach English via the topic and hoping they're going to be more interested in this topic than they would be, interchange thing about your house, something like that. Keep in mind the topic's not important. Don't get hooked up in the topic. Like, I'm sure some of my sports friends in here have got it. Oh, hey, you don't know about, the 49ers? You don't know about this? Let me tell you. I'm not saying you have, but that would be a natural inclination. You have done it. Yeah. But that would be natural. I'm glad you said it, because that's natural. Because you think you're supposed to be teaching them about American sports. And I've done similar things, so keep that in mind. First thing we're going to do, really quickly, can someone tell me as fast as they can, I'm going to count to 10, how do you give instructions? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Can anyone tell me? That's one of the most important parts of Connect. How, keep in mind, I'm saying, how do you give instructions? Okay?
Model?
Okay, model.
10
Okay.
seconds, right?
No, that's 10 seconds to tell me. Yeah, but there's, yeah.
Short and simple instructions.
Okay. That's a description. I appreciate it. No, that is a description.
Talk.
Okay, you talk. But exactly what would you do?
You give them the structure, because a lot of the Connect series, it's the foundation, and you can swap out the information. If they have the structure, they can.
Okay. Work it under. Anyone else?
What's the question?
How do you give instructions in Connect?
I go through it word by word sometimes.
Okay. I know what you mean, of course, but can you change the sentence?
It says choose. I go, do you understand choose?
Okay.
And
Okay.
sometimes they'll be like, oh, and like that.
Okay.
You get them to read the instruction, get them
Okay.
to read aloud so they get, because it's using the same words on every page, and then finally they understand, and then after that, you just tell them those same words.
Okay.
Choose from this picture, and they hear the word. Like, oh.
Okay. Really important point, and I'm going to hit on that, but you said it already. So it's really important to actually read those instructions to the students every time, because they're all the same. And once you get to chapter 5 or 6, you're just reading the same instruction. Read and match. Luigi and Lisa are going to a festival. Listen and tell me if it's true or false. What happens? Correct the false. Like, you're going to read it over and over. The problem comes if you change it every time. So if every time you give them instruction about the same thing, you're like, hey, you know what this means? Or, hey, look, it's a festival, and you're using lots of different words, it becomes confusing. If you just say those exact sentences over and over and over again, even if they don't understand every word by like chapter 5, 6, 7, they'll know exactly what you want them to do. The reason I was asking, number one, you should plan your instructions along with your lesson plans. How are you going to explain it? And the reason I know a little bit about instructions is I'm really impatient, and I'm terrible at giving them. And so I had to actually look online at how to do this properly. Like, I'm just impatient. And Connect doesn't help. It's so wordy. They're just like, explain to your students that in America, often on Fridays after school, kids go to football games. They meet their parents there, and they have hot dogs, and you're just like, you go and explain that. I can't explain that. Right? So basically, number one is plan your instructions. Number two, be explicit, but don't use too many words. And the easiest thing to do is just read the instructions over and over in the Connect book. And they'll understand. Number three, no imperatives. Don't say like, it says in the book, like, don't say to them like, repeat. Because they'll start thinking that's something that's natural, and they'll start saying that to you. Repeat. And you'll be like, you don't talk to me like that. You don't tell me to repeat. Okay, so don't use imperative. Use what you want them to say. So, please read, right? Okay. I mentioned before, read them the same. Number 2, as Ken said, then demonstrate it. So in the Connect book, we use 2. Connect gives 1 demonstration. Does everyone know what I mean? Like, they give that first answer in the Connect book. They say, here's the first answer. So you read through, do the first answer, then I do a second one. So I give them 2 answers. Okay? Then we try not to say, I say it all the time, but we try not to say, do you understand? Because if you say, do you understand, no one wants to be stupid and be like, no, I don't understand. So everyone's just like, oh, I understand they don't. Right? Things like, okay, or more importantly, just watch. And then you can tell right away if they're not doing it.
Can you say, what does it mean?
Getting a little bit too challenging. Like they might tell, like if they don't know what it means, you might be a little hard. We usually always have taught that you should just use an example. If you want to know if someone knows what a word means, just ask them, can you use it in a sentence? Rather than saying, do you understand? But it's hard. I often find myself going, do you understand? And then realize, hey, that's not what I'm supposed to be saying. But generally, do you understand is not the key. Give 2 examples, and then just watch. And just monitor. So it would look something like this. You stop, get their attention. They look at you and listen. You give the instructions, model 2 examples, okay? Then give, model, and then monitor, and then you check them. But it's so important to keep this the exact same process every time. And a lot of my instructions were very, very bad because I was always changing up what I was doing. So I read it right from the book now. Last thing I'm going to hit on, who has multi-level classes? This is a question we get all the time. Who has multi-level classes? Who has frustrating multi-level classes?
What do you mean?
People at just different levels. Like one student does it in 2 minutes, another student does it in 15. I only can give you one piece of advice is that every class is actually all multi-level. Okay. Every class is multi-level when you think about it, right? Like all your students have one talent over, higher, lower. The best thing you do, go into the Connect book, look at the very back. It has a whole bunch of photocopies called Extra Practice, Quiz, and Test. And just make sure if you have a multi-level class, you just come with 3 or 4 photocopies to hand them when they finish. Just like at home, the really, really good students get more work, right?
Give them a test?
Yeah, well, they're tests in the book, in the back. It's just something to have. Someone can whip through that. You say, okay, well, here's a test to work on while the other student finishes. Because I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where everybody's at the right level in every single class. So just make some photocopies and give it to them. We're going to do one last quick, because I know we did just eat. We're just going to go around the room really quickly. Here's how I like to warm up with teenagers. It's called Say It With Feeling. And obviously you have to consider who the teenagers are when you go to do it. But basically, they have found that people learn better when they're relaxed and when they're laughing, when they have fun. So I have 4 really, really cool teenage girls. And so I always used to get a kick out of going around the room and doing this little exercise with them. So we'll just do it together really quickly. So keeping in mind that now you're all 14, 15-year-old Japanese girls. Okay? So, okay, keep in mind this. So we're in the room, I come in, I sit down, I said, okay, we're going to do this game. It's called, Say It With Feeling. So I want you to say this just like I said it. And you can see how fun it was. So I sit down, and I'll go, okay, here's what you got to say. You got to go, dude! 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 Oh! Dude! 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 Okay, we're doing one last time going the other way just to be fair. But you gotta put something into it. Ready? So, again, remember you're 13, 14, 15-year-old Japanese girls. And so bad, I want to cry. I'm laughing so hard. Like, cool! Oh, cool. 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 Cool.
Cool.
Cool.
Cool.
Cool. Cool. in this handout, we're not going to get on all of them. I will give.
Do you ever do them writing stuff in class?
No, for homework usually.
Have them write grammar and stuff?
Usually, for writing, try to do it at home.
Yeah, we had fun with that, like saying feeling. But little John was the teacher. That would be the class.
Can I see that? Okay, to get started. John, or can you hand these off?
I don't think I could get any of them
Oh, yeah.
to speak up.
Did you get one? Okay. 10 minutes? Okay, yeah. When you look inside of here, there's 6 principles. And I'm going to read them to you, but we're going to cover what I kind of consider maybe the most, one or two of the most important ones. What I've done is I've just given you, everyone here has a Connect handout? Sorry, you don't have one? Oh, it's coming? Okay. Can you one more?
Yeah.
No, you stop. Okay. If you look here, it says the 6 principles of teaching a second language. We're not going to have time, and it wouldn't be that appropriate for me to try to go into how you're going to apply all these. These are just a general idea. But we're going to do at least one practice with one of the principles. So taking a look at the principles and how you can apply them to class. It's too big a topic. The book I have is called Teaching by Principles. And it's a huge, thick book. But it can give you, these can give you a general idea of how to do something. We're going to start with automaticity. If you look at number 1, Lamar, could you read principle number 1 for us quickly?
Yeah, no problem. Efficient second language learning involves the timely movement and control of a few language forms into the automatic fluent processing of a relatively unlimited number of language forms. Over-analyzing the language, thinking too much about its forms, and consciously lingering on the rules of language ultimately impede this graduation to automaticity.
Yeah, he has a PhD for sure, right? Yeah, definitely. Generally, you're just trying to get people to speak. Okay, you're trying to get them to speak without going through grammatical explanations. We're talking like just usage. You're trying to make it genuine. What are things they would really talk about? And you're trying to do this through moving bits by bit. If I was to say to you, looking at your Connect handout, how would you move a student to automaticity in your class? Can you turn to your partner? Just turn to the person. Yeah, just turn. Yeah. Partner, quick, turn to your partner. Looking at your Connect handout, your goal is to move away from grammatical explanations, move away from the idea you're going to go into these route learning things where they're going to have these special phrases like, oh, really? Things like that, into genuine usage. Okay? Can you take, and I know it's not enough time, but we only have a limited amount of time in here. So can you take 3-4 minutes, explain to your partner how you would move them to automaticity with the material you have ready to go? Tell me in 3 minutes.
Yeah, she's going to make it automatic. I'm going to take it from the 0 to
just 3 minutes.
I'd like to try to start quizzing them. Kind of just like the point and then having that discussion. say what it is. There's, no, because then so first you got to kind of introduce it, and then I think the next step would be something like a flashcard kind of thing.
You like part of it?
What do you think about it? Take it as introduction model first.
We don't have very
There's just starting with one set first.
Okay, can we stop for just 1 second? Can we stop? Okay, can we stop? Perfect. Thank you. Andrew, can you read?
And then you could do.
Andrew, can you read principle number 4?
Number 4, successful language learners generally believe in themselves and their capacity to accomplish communicative tasks and are therefore willing risk takers in their attempts to produce and interpret language that is a bit beyond their own absolute certainty. Their willingness to communicate results in the generation of both output from the learners and the learners.
Okay. And that's what you're just trying to get your students in the context of the class to be calculated risk takers. Everyone here knows when you actually ask your student you ask them a question, they take that kind of moment to pause, and you see they're having to come up with their own language. They're not going to revert back to some form that they've learned, and they have to do that. With the Connect sheets that I've handed you, how are you going to get your students to take a calculated risk and speak? Ready, 3 minutes, go! To same partners. Okay, for like 3 minutes. Who's this? What's he doing?
Is there a way to have them recall this? And then let them use Question. The only response is yes or no. So I wonder if there's a good way to ask a little bit complicated or ask for this
Better than me.
What is that?
How much time do you have left?
30 seconds.
We're done in 30 seconds. We're done in 30 seconds.
Bringing up some flashcards.
10 minutes. How long? No, for this.
Find them.
It's over in 10 minutes.
They're not even there, but like.
Okay. Is it over in 10 minutes or done now? What time is it over at? What time is it? Oh yeah, 2:30. Okay, 10 minutes, right? 10 minutes. Okay, thank goodness. Teaching by principles for no principles. We're taught. That's not going to look good on the. Okay, we're going to go to principle number 6. Ken, would you please read it for us?
Given that communicative competence is the goal of the language classroom, instruction needs to point toward all its components: organizational, pragmatic, strategic, and psychomotor. Communicative goals are best achieved by giving due attention to language use and not just usage, to fluency and not just accuracy, to authentic language and context, and students' eventual need to apply classroom learning to previously unrehearsed contexts in the real world.
It's big and wordy. Yeah.
Just to make more sense of that, I've studied this before.
Yep.
We've got a lot of adolescents, teenagers, they go from concrete learning experiences to abstract ones, and that's kind of like principle 6 right here. So what happens is you have to have this structure and scaffolding, and once they're ready to go beyond that, they start inserting their own ideas and their perceptions into it because they have that structure there. But a lot of adolescents around 13, 14, they're not ready for abstract thinking, so they can't give you the answers that you're seeking until you give that structure.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's awesome.
Sorry.
That's exactly there. That's awesome, though. That's really great. And that's actually what we're trying to get to. As you see inside your folder, you do have a little thing on scaffolding I did a long time ago. That's mostly there because my handout was too thin. But they told me your handout's too thin. So, but actually, when you think about the principal scaffolding to make the independent learner, for some of you who didn't take that part, it's going to be really, really helpful. Basically, your students are going to go into the real world. They're going to have to be like confident in how they're going to survive with repair skills, with things like that. I mean, they're not going to have you there. They're going to go to different places in the world. They're not going to be able to turn around and turn to you to save them. They have to have their own repair strategies. They have to have their own way of negotiating their way through language. So again, I know that it seems like it's very simple. How are you going to kind of pass that principle number 6 on with the handout that you have? Okay, look at principle number 6. Okay. Okay, ready, turn to your partner and go.
Individuality. Individuality. It seems like you're not pulling the answers if you're teaching this kind of stuff, I don't know if they're this exercise first, and then ask them about their own living situation. ALS training, questions, open questions, closed. Right, so family, something that what's in your room? What's in your house? What's in your kitchen? And then you can ask the question. Then you can ask these questions.
Okay. May I have your attention, please? What's the song?
May I have your attention, please?
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. Okay. Christian, can you read principle number 2?
Successful mastery of a foreign language will depend upon...
Number 2, the other number 2.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Dyslexic.
The process of making meaningful associations between existing knowledge, experience, and new material will lead toward a better long-term retention than rote learning of material in isolated pieces.
Basically, when we're teaching them a topic, it obviously helps, which kind of gets back to why a lot of you know when you're doing the Connect series, all those movie stars and all those pop stars are meaningless to most of these students here, right? They've never heard of them, right? A lot of them they've just never heard of. You're just trying to teach them the language, right, via the topics. But that's why you know you're not trying to teach them the topic. They don't ever need to know who Ryan Seacrest is ever for the rest of their life. Yeah?
But what I do is, because it's work for them for the physics, I prepare a lesson where I put Japanese, so they can talk about it. So if they're like, if I know very few One Piece characters, I just put like, I don't know, I change it around in cartoons and a character or something, so I'll bring pictures.
That's
and
awesome.
they're like, oh, who's it? But they're like, oh, she's a model, like, you know, she's a model. Who's this? And they're like, and they'll say, I don't know her name. What's her name? But I blow it up.
That's meaningful learning. That's exactly the whole point of meaningful learning. I didn't pay you to say that. That's awesome. That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly the idea.
Like some, I don't know. Please tell me.
Yeah.
Is she? You know, and they start talking.
Sure.
And then I say something ridiculous. You know, like, is she 40? And then how old is she?
That's awesome. The thing is that they'll remember that lesson, you know, long before they remember, like, you know, the shock that hit me. I said, you don't know who Brad Pitt is, like, right? They're not going to forget about him, but they'll remember it. You taught them, and that's the whole idea of meaningful learning: taking something via the topic and teaching it to them in a meaningful way to make the connections, and they'll hang on to it. Last few minutes, please.
Well, the same type of thing, but you, as I was saying to Mike when we were talking about this, you don't actually need pictures, because you can use language to get to those topics from these pictures.
Oh, okay.
You can, like, when they ask, you know, who's he? You know, then they finally, you know, guess that he's an actor. You can ask them, do you like actors? Who's your favorite actor? And the conversation can go from there.
Okay, yeah,
So
awesome.
you can get around to any topic from those pictures.
Okay.
But giving the students a choice, do you want to know who he is?
Yeah.
If you want to know who he is, then we go further.
Okay.
Or we just drop it.
Yeah.
Give them a choice.
That's good. Because they don't want to know who he is. Actually, how many people here?
Yes.
They actually answer yes?
Sometimes yes, I
Oh, do
do
they?
want to know.
Oh, okay. How many people ask their students who's your favorite actor, and they're like, no one?
Tell them lie.
Huh?
Lie.
Okay, I don't know. I just
Make
asked
up
them about
something.
who's your favorite musician or who's your favorite actor, like, no one, no one.
That's
Yeah.
why I bring like 3 pictures of like top Japanese actors. I'm like, who's your favorite one? And they're like, they're blind.
Oh, okay. That's awesome. Awesome. Are we out of time? We have 2 minutes left. Okay. Like I said, I can't go through, obviously, and obviously this book is filled with 12 principles. Just the general idea is when you go into your Connect class, using some of the things we talked about, just to have these principles in the back of your mind of what you're really trying to accomplish, and that it's not to teach them the topics in the Connect book, but to teach them English via the topics and use some of these principles, and to fight against our natural desire to really think it's important to explain to them the ins and outs of North American pop culture. Everyone was a great participant. Thank you very much for your time. You did a great job. I hope this was helpful. May I have those Connect sheets back? I actually need the Connect copies back. Yeah.